Today's outcrop of the day is this rhyolite porphyry with unusually large phenocrysts of quartz, plagioclase, K-feldspar and biotite. Why is that so good? Because that mineral set is the perfect set of indicators for the level of intensity of hydrothermal alteration, because each one of them goes to a different mineral at a different stage in that alteration sequence. Biotite's the first to go. It gets a little bit wrinkly cleavage first, then it gets converted to chlorite, and eventually the entire crystals will go to muscovite. Plagioclase is next to go, and it usually converts to a mixture of sericite, quartz and carbonate. And then finally K-feldspar converts to a similar mixture, and it usually goes along with the matrix as well. Quartz crystals survive the entire process because quartz is part of the alteration assemblage, so that mineral is stable with respect to the hydrothermal fluid. In this case there's some extra clues because the surface has this really pitted texture. That's because there used to be some big feldspar phenocrysts in here. They've been altered to sericite and then weathered out to leave these oblong shaped holes. But the quartz phenocrysts are unaffected by the alteration, so they stand proud of the surface. And if I break this open, and if I tilt this around in the sun, you should be able to see the sparkling sericite grains here in what used to be a large phenocryst of feldspar. And over here, if I tilt it around there, you should be able to see the brilliant reflection of a hexagonal shape that's used to be a biotite phenocryst and is now muscovite. And there's some quartz phenocrysts here and here that are completely unaltered because quartz is part of the phyllic alteration assemblage, so the primary phenocrysts are unaltered. This is the same rhyolite porphyry with phyllic alteration at level 2 on my scale of 0 to 5. The plagioclase phenocrysts have been altered to a mix of green sericite, quartz and carbonate, but the K-feldspars, which you can see from that bright cleavage reflection, have survived almost unharmed. With a little water on the sample, you can see the altered plagioclase a little more distinctly, and the black patches are chlorite after biotite, partially converted to muscovite. One useful trick when you're mapping phyllic alteration in the field is the sound it makes when you hit it with a geopick. This piece here has level 4 phyllic alteration, and when I hit it, that dull knocking sound is quite distinct from the typical ping you get when you hit an unaltered rock. And here you can see the phyllic alteration. All of the big feldspar phenocrysts have gone to sericite, and the quartz phenocrysts have survived the alteration. This is the same porphyry with weak porphyritic alteration, and you can see the surface is much smoother without those pits from the weathered out feldspars. And if I hit it, hear that more of a ping from the hammer. That's because the feldspars are still pretty much intact. And on this surface here you can see the feldspars and the quartz grains both sticking proud of the surface, while the matrix is now the softest thing, and in fact only the mafic minerals, the biotites, are altered to chlorite, so they're a little bit recessive. But the feldspars, you can see, still almost perfect, and in fact still showing good cleavage. And on this broken piece here, you can see this feldspar here, that's a big K-feldspar crystal, and you can see it's twinned, and half of it there is reflecting really good sunlight, and that's because it's almost unaltered. K-feldspar is a little more resistant to alteration than plagioclase, and it tends to be the last feldspar to survive. So in porphyritic alteration, it's almost unaffected. But you can see a biotite there, now it's a grey-green colour. That's because it's all altered to chlorite. This is a finer grained version of the porphyry, but it has the same set of phenocryst minerals. And it's a perfect example of porphyritic alteration at level 2. Just about here, if I tilt it around, you can see the reflections of a nice hexagonal euhedral crystal of what used to be biotite, and it's now gone to chlorite. And you can tell it's chlorite because it's a grey-green colour and the surface is slightly fuzzy. It's not a nice, shiny, clean reflection like biotite. It's kind of fuzzy. And that's what happens when you convert a biotite crystal to chlorite. And just next to it, over here, if I tilt that around, you can see there's a feldspar phenocryst that still has a really good, clean, bright reflection. And that's what happens in propylitic alteration. The mafic minerals, particularly biotite, are the first to get altered to chlorite, and the feldspars generally survive until things get a bit more intense. Now if you see that feldspar phenocryst there seems to have a bit of green core in it, and so do a lot of the other ones, like this one over here and this one here, and particularly that one there, although it's a bit small. That green core is epidote, and what happens is that feldspar phenocrysts tend to grow with a calcic core and a sodic rim, and the available calcium in the core tends to let epidote grow there first, because epidote is a calcium mineral. So you find these green cores in the middle of the feldspar phenocrysts. So that combination of epidote in the feldspars and chlorite in the biotites is a classic propylitic assemblage. Another good thing about this porphyry is that it illustrates a good way to tell the difference between a crystal tuff, a lava, or an intrusive porphyry. My general rule of thumb for making that distinction is to look at the proportion of the phenocrysts that are broken. If lots of them are broken up into fragments, then it's most likely a tuff. If most of them are still good crystal shapes, then it's most likely a lava or an intrusive porphyry. In this case, you can see the feldspar crystals were absolutely perfect because they've been altered and plucked out by weathering, and you can see the nice smooth crystal faces in there. In this one you can even see the twinning shape of a K feldspar. There's another really nice smooth crystal face there. So they're not broken, and the quartz crystals also are nice equant shapes, not shards or broken fragments. So this is almost certainly an intrusive porphyry, not a tuff. When I'm mapping mineralisation systems, I always try to map the intensity of hydrothermal alteration, because hydrothermal alteration is the footprints of the hydrothermal fluid. The more alteration, the more fluid you've had through there, and that means the more likely you are to have had mineralisation deposited. So it's really good to find rocks that have an indicator of how intense that alteration is. So if you're looking for that, there's no better indicator than a nice coarse-grained porphyry with a mixture of K feldspar, plagioclase and biotite phenocrysts.